Okay, I feel compelled to make a video, and I'm going to make more videos on this topic, about the campaign of feminism, what it actually was, and the effect it's had on our culture. Now, feminism was instituted not by women. Okay, that's the important fact. It was not instituted by women. Women were dragged into it. Feminism was used by a particular part of our society, a particular group, to try to emasculate and weaken the nations of the Western world to begin with, so that those nations would be easier to infiltrate, subvert, and mislead. And the effect, I mean, it was insidious from the beginning. An example is this. I was a young kid in the 80s and 90s, and the media that was produced in that time, I, now being in my 40s and even in my 30s, I went back and I looked at the music videos, I listened to the lyrics again, and I looked at the films of that era, and they got worse and worse and worse in terms of feminism. And that wasn't a gradual response to feminism. It was the leading force of feminism, because it was forced through the media. And if you've got half a brain, then you know which people are responsible for most of the media production. And so, in fact, every single video... See, there were lots of songs I liked growing up. You know, things that were funny or fun. Every single video is laced with poisonous, noxious imagery and subliminal messaging, and not so subliminal messaging, trying to attack masculinity and trying to, basically attack masculinity and trying to insert negative, unhelpful notions into the minds of the youth, who were the main people who would have been listening to this stuff. And it's in every single one. So when I was a kid, I didn't notice. You don't. It's just what you're exposed to. You think, oh, well, that's life. That's what's out there. And now I see it. And looking back, you can see it clear as day. And I look at the effect it's had upon men, and it's just crushing. It's unbelievable. Now, I hated it at the time, but my family pressured me into joining the army when I was 18. Now, I only stayed for 2 months. I joined an infantry regiment, and I did well, but I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it at that time. I would do it now in a heartbeat, but at that time I wasn't wired up that way. But it had a massive effect on me. It took me from being a weak kid into being fairly tough, like within 2 months. Because that's what happens when you're put through even the first phase of basic training, especially in an infantry regiment. You're toughened up, and it's great. It's fantastic, because you're exposed to raw masculinity properly. It's not toned down. It's not watered down. You're expected to be a man from the second you arrive, and you're treated like absolute nothing until you respond by gathering what manhood you can and becoming strong. Now, I had no problem with the training. I could have finished it, no problem at all. But I didn't want to do it. Looking back, I kind of regret leaving, but I made the right decision at the time, I think. And I look around myself at a lot of the men, I'll use the term loosely, even men who want to see themselves as masculine, but they're so lost. And even people, I would say the generation behind mine, so men who are in their 30s now are probably, that's when it began to be a big problem. Kids in their 20s are a complete mess. And the only males in our society who have any clue really about what manhood is are those who've had military training or are involved in masculine environments for their jobs. So that is construction, the motor trade, like mechanics, people who work in factories generally. People who work with their hands in traditionally masculine roles have a good handle on manhood. I would say that a very good example is the military. So I would definitely advocate military training for all young men in our culture. So I hated it, but it helped me to go from a pretty weak, I wasn't weak, but I wasn't tough. It toughened me up a lot. And I'm watching videos on YouTube, and a particular instance is this. So I surf, and I am interested in people like Shane Dorian, who is a surfer, and he's probably knocking on 50 now, nearly. And the topic was facing your fears in riding really big waves. Fair enough. I'm just interested in that guy's in interviews with him. And both of the videos I've seen where he's being interviewed, the interviewer seems to be trying to pull out of him, Shane Dorian, elements of manhood. It's the weirdest, it's kind of good in a way, but it's so sickening to see that that's what masculinity and manhood has seemingly become seen as by a lot of men who don't really, or males who don't really understand what it is, because they've had it drilled out of them. They've been raised by women a lot of the time because their fathers and mothers weren't married. There was a divorce, usually now, and it's taken the male guts out of our society, which was the intention of those who wanted to employ feminism to this end. And women are suffering from it, men are suffering from it, but ultimately we rely now upon the recovery of men to fix this. Now, manhood is complicated. I think I've got a very good handle on it. Truly. Am I the epitome? I've got a very good handle on manhood. A very good handle on manhood. There are different... The thing is, between men, you can tell when another guy gets it. When it is largely to do with facing fears. At some point in your life, you have to face your fear as a man. In any culture, that's necessary. When you have proven that you can face your fear, then you've earned your stripes, so to speak. And there are different ways that you can demonstrate that. It's because tribally, the men are required to fight and risk their lives to protect the tribe. If they don't do that, they lose and they die. And basically the women are taken from them. Let's put it simply. And humans are a tribal animal, we always will be. And we have to respect that. We can't just delete it. So what we're seeing now is millions of men, males, who are lost, completely lost, and they're missing this one element, which is manhood. And it's the challenge of, there should be an element of physical combat involved. There should be an element of risk taking. So these guys are, it's good as a man to be emotionally aware and to be involved in and to commit to your family. But these guys, when they're interviewing, in this instance, Shane Dorian, who seems to me to have a pretty good handle on manhood too, I can just tell. But the guys who are interviewing him, they just seem so clueless regarding manhood. It's like they're trying to grab the truth of manhood from him. And what we really need is to take our, basically, the cure for this is national service. That's the cure. The cure is to take every single male in our countries and put them through military training. That will make them men, because it's a male environment. It's the epitome of the male environment. Yes, there are other industries which are very heavily male as well, but I think military is like the best. Now the problem is that we risk going to war, which, I mean, I in a way feel pretty positive about. I think that war is not, yes, war is this horrible, stressful thing, but at the same time, it's part of the male experience. You can't just shy away from it and be like, oh no, you know, you've got, peace is good, but strength is necessary. So military strength is important. So we've got a whole culture of men who don't have a clue what the hell they're doing. They're walking around pushing prams and carrying babies on themselves, and it's just, oh my God, it is sickening. It is truly sickening. And yeah, now it's not like a man can't hold a baby, but don't do what women are meant to do. And you can tell me I'm sexist till you're blue in the face, and I will stare you down and tell you I'm sorry, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's that. Because it's the truth. I love women, but men are men and women are women, and that's that. So I'm sorry, that's just, we have to recover from this impact. That's all it is. There's no progress. This was an impact. It was intended to do damage, and it has done damage, but it's recoverable. It's possible to recover from it, and we know what to do. Men are crying out for this. They're crying out for this element. They're foaming at the mouth. They want this so bad. So those of us men who have got it need to give it. So, yeah, and we all have to help each other, really. And one of the ways of doing it is, in fact, warfare. And it's a sad thing to say, but it's the truth. In a way, we need to kind of thin the herd a bit. It sounds off, but that's part of life. That's part of manhood. The risk of death. That's why people do extreme sports. We are wired to do that kind of thing. Not everyone's as wired that way as everyone else, but that's what men are expected to do. So we need to walk away from this feminist garbage. Just walk away from it. And remember what manhood is. And I honestly, one of my plans and intentions is to set up something whereby we can train young men in how to be men again. And I'd like to see something for women as well, so that they can be trained in how to be effective, useful women. Because crikey, getting married to a woman from our culture at the moment, you may as well shoot yourself. Because they are not in any way, they have no clue what womanhood is. So we need to get back to basics and be, human again. But yeah, I don't know, I had to make a video on this. I will make more videos on this because it has to be spoken, it has to be fixed.